Hello everyone. In the previous chapters, we saw how to configure our elements in the tab Parameters. But these parameters are fixed and cannot be modified over the duration of your view. PTE has a function that almost no other program has, allowing us to overcome this. Let's see this interesting function. Open your program and insert an empty view. Then, open the Objects and Animations editor for this view. Now let's add an image. I will voluntarily select a portrait format in HD. Good. By default, our program works in 16 nits, and our image is perfectly centered on the screen, but only covers a small part of it. We saw previously that we can crop our image with the command crop aspect. That we can use the part that interests us with the command image cropping. Or that we can modify the zoom so that it is either perfectly adjusted to the screen, or either that it completely covers the screen. All of its commands are immutable and cannot be changed while in view. Well, as I told you in the introduction, that's not quite true. Yes, PTE has another function, which is in the Animation tab, which will allow you to change this situation. Why? Because, in the first place, it is the part of the visible image which is interesting, and as we create an animation, it must show what we want it to show, and not to the viewer to look for what he must see. Good. Now in my project I want to put my image in a frame in landscape format. The command, cover the screen, is of no use to me, because if we decrease the size of the image, we will see the overflowing parts of the frame. The command, crop image, could do the trick, but, depending on the format used for the original photo, it will be necessary to modify the values, and, moreover, depending on the framing of the image in the photo, it will be necessary also modify the values to take the part that interests us. We are therefore going to use the aspect cropping command to put it in the desired format, whatever the format and size of the original image. You are now going to tell me, yes, but I would certainly not see the part that interests me. Basically, that's true, and we could then use our image as is, in a mask. This other solution is viable, but it will force you to add a mask for each image you want to modify, which will consume memory, rendering time, and considerably lengthen the list of your elements. There is an alternative. This alternative will allow you to take the part of the image that interests you, whatever its format and size, with or without aspect cropping. So I want to use my image in a frame in 4/3 format. So first, I'm going to use the command aspect crop with the setting 4/3. This done, let's go to the tab Animations. To see the scope of the command we are going to use, change the size of your image to 80% on both axes. For the moment, as there is only one image in the list, modify the size of the Animation tab to see all the commands. To do this, place your cursor on the line that separates the commands from the list of items. It turns into a double up and down arrow. Click, hold the click, and move your cursor down until you see all the commands. For information, you can resize all parts of your window with the same principle, and adjust the program to your needs and your taste. Now coming to the point, in the list of commands you have the command line, Dynamic Framework, followed by 3 settings. It is this command that will be very useful for us to take the part of the image that interests us. Let's see how to use it. We have 2 variables, X and Y, which will be able to move the visible part of your image in its frame. Its frame is immutable and defined in the tab Properties. In our example, we have a 4/3 frame for our 9/16 image, and is visible when our image is selected. It is the yellow border that's surrounded. If we modify the value of x, nothing happens, because the real horizontal edges of the image correspond to the edge of the frame. On the other hand, if we modify I Greek, ha, we then see a variable part of the image, from the upper part at plus 100% to its lower part at minus 100%. These are also the maximum values of these controls, whatever the size of the image. Reset both values to 0%. Second, you have the S frame, S for size, size in English. Original, it is 100%. Let's change this value to, for example, 200%. You may find that you cannot go below 100%, as the frame must always be completely covered by your image. Now, we can modify the visible part of our image, on the two axes X and Y Greek, in order to take the part which interests us. But that is not all. This command, being in the tab Animations, is modifiable over time, and therefore, will allow us to modify the visible part of our image for the duration of our view. Let's do a test. For the duration of the view, I want to go from the feet to the head of our character. Place your time cursor at the beginning of the view, and modify the value. Dynamic frame I Greek at minus 100%. Then place your time at the end of the view, and add a key at this time. Now activate the command, dynamic frame. Then, change the I Greek value from minus 100 to plus 100%. And play your animation. Indeed, we can see that the image in the frame goes from its lower part to its upper part during the time of the animation. You can add other keys, and modify the size and the visible part of the image as you wish, and without limits, without having to create masks, and move and zoom the image in this one. As I told you, this function is extremely interesting, to take the desired part of our image, without adding other elements and a lot of animation. This command is also applicable to video type assets, but is not applicable to other asset types. One last information for this chapter, still concerning the size of the elements. In the upper command bar, you have the last command in the form of a drop-down menu, and which is by default on Auto. If you click on the drop-down menu opening arrow, you have different options. The first, and used by default, is Auto. This option will force the program to adapt the resolution of your preview window so that its size corresponds to its allocated space. For all other values, the resolution of your viewing window will be proportional to the base resolution of your screen. Let's look at this in a bit more detail. So if I set this option to 100%, and my screen resolution is 1600 by 900, the actual resolution of the preview area will be the same, that is also 1600 by 900 pixels, and we don't only see a part of it, the part that is in the viewing area. By playing with this zoom value, we can therefore enlarge, or shrink, the fictitious size of our window, and therefore, this allows us to have a more precise adjustment the larger this zoom is. And, to see the outside of our montage, the smaller the zoom, allowing us to manipulate elements that would be outside the visible area of our animation. This command has no effect on the final result of our editing, it is just very useful for editing and adjusting our animation. We have come to the end of this chapter, and in the next we will begin to see the animation of our elements, as well as the usefulness of elements, frames. Thank you for your attention, and see you soon for the rest of our tutorials dedicated to PTE AV Studio 10. Katerina and Patrick.